So if you'd followed me for any length of time, I'm not a big fan of polls. I think polls can be wrong. They'd been wrong going all the way back to 2016 until they finally got it right in 2024. Now, polls used to be much better, and maybe they finally caught up to the modern idea and modern technology, and maybe they figured it out. I don't know. We'll have to see how more accurate they are going forward. I don't want to get back on their bandwagon and say, "Oh, these polls are great. They show everything." We'll just have to see how they do. But there's a poll out from Echelon that was looking ahead to 2028, and it was looking at the Democratic frontrunners for the nomination for president. And the current frontrunner for the Democrats at 41% is Kamala Harris, which is interesting. Second place was Gavin Newsom with 33%. And we're looking at that going, oh, well, that's, to me, that's interesting that Kamala Harris would be that high. It's still not an overwhelming majority, but we are also only 3 weeks out from an election where she lost. She is still currently the sitting vice president, so maybe some of those factors are, it's just something to look at and go, could she be the nominee? But beyond who the nominee is, I think Democrats need to look hard at their message for 2028 and what they need to do. And a lot of things are going to change between here and there. They got to look at what the economy's doing, how bad Republican policies are, what has happened, and things like that, because they need to tailor their message to that. But at the same time, I think they need to focus more on making sure they get the majority of their Democratic base to vote and vote for president. I think that was one of the issues. There were a lot of issues as to why Kamala Harris didn't win, in my opinion. I've covered it in some of my other videos in my lives. But I think part of it was toward the end of the campaign, they kept shifting farther right, thinking they had their own voting base covered. And then, they were trying to pick up disenfranchised Republican voters. I think they need to give up on that idea, make their policies go a little farther left, get all of their voters in a row, and if there are Republican voters that don't want to vote for J.D. Vance or whoever the Republicans put up as a nominee, then they just need to come along for the ride with whatever policies the Democrats put out there. I don't think there needs to be this overarching idea of, well, we got to keep scaling it back to bring in as many of them, because clearly that is pushing at least some of their own voters out of the way, and you're not gaining enough by doing that. So we'll see how they handle 2028, but it is interesting that the current frontrunner for the Democrats appears to be Kamala Harris.